Roland, we're here today to talk a little bit about your experiences in World War II in Korea. Let's just start off with you telling us your full name, how you got into the U.S. Army Air Corps, which was the forerunner of the Air Force. So why don't you just start there and go forward.
My name is Roland Gladstone, and I was a senior in high school, and I joined the Army Air Corps, Enlisted Reserve Corps, 4 days after I was 18.
Okay.
And they let me finish high school and called me around February 20th or so, 1943.
And where'd you go from there?
I went, we went down to Union Station, put us on a train, and we wound up in Shepherd Field, Texas.
Okay.
That was basic training. That lasted, 6 weeks or so. And then I went to a college training detachment, University of Tulsa in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Was there for maybe 3 or 4 months. Flew in Piper Cubs, had 10 hours in a Piper Cub.
So you were in the Air Corps? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You started out with a Piper Cub.
Right. And we had various mathematics, physics courses at the university. And then we were sent to San Antonio, Texas, which is the Cadet Training Center. And you went through where they determined whether you were going into pilot training, bombardier, or navigator
What
training.
you were going to do, okay.
Right. And they sent me into pilot training, and then I went to pre-flight right there at the Cadet Center. Well, it was across the street. And that lasted, I think, 2 months or 2.5 months. And then I went to primary flight school, Ballinger, Texas.
Okay.
We had civilian pilots, instructors, and then the military would check also. And when I got, you had 20, 40, and 60-hour checks. I think I soloed around 8 or 9 hours. And I passed all the tests until I got to my 60-hour military check. And I failed that, and that was the end of the pilot training for me.
Okay.
And then I found that I would decided to be a radio operator and fly. So they sent me to radio school, which was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That lasted about 5 months. Trained me mostly in CW and all the radios. And
What's CW?
Continuous wave. That's Morse code.
Morse code, okay.
And you learn to operate what they called the liaison set, which you operated in Morse code or CW. It's continuous wave. And you learn to tune it to various frequencies and how to operate it, how to change tubes. That's about all you could do in an airplane. Change the tubes and the fuses, perhaps. And from there I went to a special gunnery training school for radio operators, and that was in Yuma, Arizona. And we flew in B-17 training there. And that lasted maybe, I'd say 2 or 3 months. We learned to shoot skeet, and we flew in B-17s, and you trained on the waist gun. And we would fire at targets that were dragged by other aircraft. And when that was all over, I had a 7-day delay in route and got home to Chicago. And the 7-day delay en route, I guess, lasted for maybe 10 days or 11 days because I was late in getting back. I think I went, my parents took me down to the only airport we had at that time.
Midway, yeah.
Midway. And I had I was able to get on a plane there, and I went to Lemoore, I think it was Lemoore, California, and stayed there for 3 or 4 weeks, doing guard duty, KP, everything you could think of. And then I was shipped to Tonopah, Nevada, Tonopah Army Air Base, and that was where we met our crew, and that was a B-24 Overseas Training Unit.
Tell us a little about a B-24. What's how many guns and so forth?
Guns?
Bomb load?
Well, the bomb load was 8,000 pounds maximum. We could fly faster and further, a little bit, compared to a B-17. It was a 10-man crew. You had a pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, flight engineer, radio operator, a armorer gunner, a nose gunner, a tail gunner, and a Sperry ball gunner. And we spent 3-4 months training in the 4th Air Force, which was the Western United States. We did high altitude flying, high altitude bombing, gunnery missions, night flying. What else?
So then you proceeded to?
Then we went to the Port of Aerial Embarkation, which was Salinas, California. We were provided with a B-24. All the weapons, guns, etc. were packed in Cosmoline, and we're in the bomb bays. And we had sealed orders that you don't open them until you're a couple hours away from the United States. And we flew from there to Hawaii. And when we opened our orders, we were going to the island of Biak.
And where's that?
That's off the coast of New Guinea. And we island hopped from Hawaii all around the southern route to escape any combat areas.
And the southern route is what now?
Oh, let's see, Hawaii to Christmas Island, to Tarawa, to Guadalcanal, then to Biak. And at Biak, we gave up the airplane, turned it in, and we stayed there for about 3-4 weeks. In the meantime there, the infantry, we only had a perimeter there, and we stood guard duty and other duties while we were there. The infantry would go into the perimeter and hunt Japs and outside of the perimeter.
Had the Japanese gone into New Guinea by this time?
Oh, sure.
And they were on the coast or everywhere?
I don't know where they were,
Okay.
to tell you the truth. This is pretty well late in the war because we went over, I think, around February or the end of January of 45. So it's the latter stages of the war.
Did you have a permanent airplane that you flew all the time?
No,
So you didn't have a name for your airplane,
that's correct.
like you see in the movies?
Right. I think in the early days that occurred, but as time went on, most of the bomb groups and squadrons got extra crews, so they didn't have one plane to one crew all the time.
Okay. So you couldn't name it after your girlfriend?
That's
or
right.
Whatever. Yeah. Could you give us an idea of what a typical bombing mission was like? I mean, you got briefed in the morning, and then what?
Yeah, they'd get you up in the morning. You had breakfast. First, usually what happens in the evening, it was posted. So-and-so pilot's crew was on this mission. And they told you to arrive at briefing such and such a time. You'd go to the briefing and they would tell you where you're going to fly to, what altitude you're going to bomb from, what kind of bombs you got in, what happened when they went there before, what the weather was going to be. And from my own personal part, I was given what was called an SOI.
Signal operating instructions.
Right, signal operating instructions. They had, everything was encoded on rice. It was on rice paper, so if you got shot down or something, you were supposed to eat the rice
you could
paper.
eat it, yeah.
And let's see, the main thing they would tell you to where the IP initiation point where all the planes would get together. We all took off separately. We had a practice fuel consumption because you only had so much fuel to get there and get back. And the longest mission I ever flew was 15 hours. It was from Mindoro in the Philippines to Balikpapan in Borneo, and the Australians were on the ground there. They came off of battleships or cruisers, and we supported that. But that was the longest mission. On that mission, we had a bomb bay. One of the bomb bays had a fuel tank in. We needed extra fuel. But still, if you didn't practice fuel consumption, in other words, you ran your engines, say, automatic lean or as lean as you could be without the cylinder head temperatures getting too high, it was fine. When you started in and got together and got into formation, then you went to automatic rich, and when you started in right over the target, you went to full rich. And that's when you start in on that target. That's when the guns start shooting at you and you're dropping your bombs. And then the bombardier has control of the aircraft.
When you're over the target, did the bombardier have a Norden bomb sight?
Yes.
And those were how accurate?
Well, the story was, I think from 10,000 feet, you could put a something into a 100-foot circle.
Okay.
Yeah, a bomb into a 100-foot circle. I think that was the story that was given.
All right, and what altitude did you guys bomb from?
We bombed usually from 10 to 12,000 feet.
Okay.
Didn't have to use any oxygen, which was very nice.
Any aircraft fire come up that high?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
What was that like, flying through that?
Well, that's known as flak. And really, the problem comes there is that if the B-24s, whether you're in a real tight formation, but their radar, whether they spot you pretty well and whether they have their anti-aircraft shells set for certain altitudes, fine. But really the story is when you look out a window or something and you can see the burst, that's fine. It's what you can't see that'll kill you.
I guess that's true. You were a staff sergeant at this time, right?
No, I was a staff sergeant at the end after I flew about, well, I think I flew, the last mission was 13 missions. I think after that I was a staff sergeant.
Okay, and how many missions did you fly altogether?
13, I think.
13. So you go drop your bombs, you return to base.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the next mission and so forth.
Right.
I understand that after the war, you were in the Army Air Force.
No.
Okay. After you came back and went to school.
Oh, yeah. I was called back. I was commissioned in 1950. I was in the reserve, but I went to college and graduated, and then they gave me commissioned me.
You were in Korea then?
No. I was called back for Korea, but I never got to Korea. I never got out of the United States.
Okay. Before we wind this up, I'd like to ask you a couple different questions than we've been talking about. What's your definition of patriotism? What first
We were born in a country that got into trouble. And my viewpoint is everybody's got to help to get out of the trouble. Mm-hmm. And at a particular time when Pearl Harbor was bombed, the Patriots